of the month. I think it's September, which means next month is October. And right after October, we have the wonderful election day. But we've also got other things coming. For example, Wave Jim Wright, he has got a nice Category 5 hurricane, maybe 4 coming. Now, I don't know if it's going to get to you or not.
It'll be 3 or 2 by the time it gets here.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to wait and see what Donald Trump draws on his whiteboard with his Sharpie.
In fact, I posted that. It's a stunning. You have a hurricane coming at you, and the only thing that I can think of right now is that we actually had a president of the United States of America who has access to every multimedia tool that there is known to man and all of the science, who actually once held up a sign that he drew on with a Sharpie so that he didn't have to admit that he was wrong like a normal human being. And the whole country looked at that and went, well, okay. God damn, man. This is not the future that science fiction writers like David Gerrold promised us. That's what I'm saying.
Well, speaking of David Gerrold, he's got his own hurricane coming in 3 months, right?
Yeah.
So what's your hurricane's name going to be? I forget.
We are not revealing the name until she's born.
Okay.
I'm told it's bad luck, but we just decided that when she's born, and we will post a picture and we will introduce her to the world. And then I will have pictures of 2 kids to share and get people all weepy-eyed. The kids are running a GoFundMe. Please share it if you can, to help pay off the expenses that they incurred with Aiden, so they can start running up expenses with the new one. So
that's good. Well, I tell you what, David, if you've got you type that link into the comments section there, we'll get it.
I'm looking for it right now. I shared it once. I'll share it again here. Let me just find it.
Oh, thank you. Let me see if I can find it, and I'll post it in the.
Yeah, because babies, of all the things that we think of, with all of the effort they're going through to have forced birth in this country, you would think that it would cost less.
You would, but You think that these goddamn people that are trying to force us to have more babies against our will would be their priority? Healthcare, housing, making sure people have enough to eat. You think that would be? Of course, they claim this stuff, in the name of their miserable God and their religion, and yet that same book says over and over again, feed the hungry, clothe the poor, heal the sick. Doesn't say shit about babies other than the first couple of chapters where their God kills all the ones on the planet off. But over and over, the guy that they named their religion for says, feed the hungry, clothe the poor, heal the sick. And that's the last goddamn thing these people will do. Nowhere in that, I just went back through the New Testament here the other day, just looking for a reference where it said, round up desperate people, put them on a bus, and send them to Martha's Vineyards. Couldn't find a reference to that anywhere. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Religion makes.
I saw a meme today that is put the fear of God into me. It said the people who will put people on an airplane are the kind of people who will put people into boxcars.
That's a fact. That is a damn fact. That's literally what I said earlier this week when stuff started happening. And, I don't know, all you have to do is look at my Twitter feed where there's 10,000 angry people yelling at me. And stop comparing us to Nazis. Really? Because there are people. I live in the state of Florida.
And I will. Yeah,
I live in the state of Florida. And there are people in the street here in the state of Florida waving the Nazi swastika, wearing Nazi uniforms, and giving the Sieg and saying things like, Jews will not replace us. Now, goddamn, man, if you don't want to be called a fucking Nazi, I'm just saying, right? Have you looked in the mirror? I don't know.
40 years ago, that would have got you a drive-by shooting.
It wouldn't even have got that. It would have gotten 4 guys to jump out of a car and beat the ever living hell out of you. My God, man. And the worst part about it is, is this state is full of people that are of an age that once fought the actual Nazis in Europe, are somehow voting for this clown that's running this state, that's putting people on airplanes and on buses and shipping them across the country, and whose supporters are standing in the street in the Capitol in Tallahassee wearing Nazi uniforms. You don't want to be called a Nazi. Maybe stop associating with goddamn Nazis. You know what I'm saying? I can't believe
I will tell you this, and I don't want to, let me put it this way. Somebody who has access to statistics is telling me that more guns are being sold to liberals these days than to conservatives. Like 2/3 of all new gun sales are going to people who vote blue. So that's how serious some people seem to be. I don't know if that fact is true, but that's how serious, even if it indicates only an uptick, it indicates how much people are a little bit concerned about the crazies. It reminds me, there's a book called Failsafe, and there's a movie in which Walter Matthau plays a character named Groteshell. And the line is in the movie as well as in the book where he says, if every Jew that the Gestapo came for had met them with a gun, they would have run out of Gestapo before they ran out of Jews. And it would have stopped that. I think that since the Holocaust, there are a lot of Jewish people who are thinking never again is not just a hollow phrase, but a very real commitment that we will not let this happen to ourselves again. And there are people who are predicting, people who I trust, who are predicting we are headed towards a lot of violence, whether it's organized or whether it's sporadic or whether it's massacres. We are headed into a period of some serious violence. So,
well, yeah, America's always been, we have a violent past, even though you wouldn't know that because we don't teach it in school anymore. And my state leads the way in whitewash in our history. But yeah, we all went through, we're all of an age where we grew up with the violence of the 1960s, violence that in some ways changed things for the better. And I'm not a huge fan of violence, but sometimes that's what it comes to. And again, I'm not advocating violence in any way, shape, or form. I'm a much bigger fan of reason. I spent most of my life in a violent profession, and I know what war does to people. And it infuriates me that we can't fix the future without having violence. But this is apparently human nature. There's people here. In fact, this morning I rode 15, 20 miles this morning. I don't know how many trucks I passed with stickers on the back of them and flags. They're ready to kill all the rest of us to get their way. And it's stunning to me that this is the second decade of the 21st century. This isn't the future that we were promised. But here we are. And so, as you said,
we didn't promise you a future. You get to build, design.
Yeah, build. It's exactly right. You have to build. I'm being flippant here. You're right. We have to build a future. And the bottom line here is that if it comes to violence, then it comes to violence, and people should be prepared for that, I guess. I don't advocate it. I still think that we can change our future without violence, though that margin narrows seemingly every day. This country wobbles back and forth. I think that on one hand, we're being threatened with violence. If you arrest people who threaten to overthrow the United States of America, by God, we're going to overthrow the United States of America, which my knee-jerk response is, well, fucking bring it, because, but on the other hand, because I don't respond well to being threatened by dim-witted goons with swastikas and Confederate flags and guns. And on the other hand, it bothers me when I see the reluctance of the people that could stop this to do anything about it. I hear this over and over again, and as soon as I say this, I'm going to get 10,000 messages. But I don't know what the hell the Justice Department is waiting for. The shit needs to happen. These people need to be arrested. They need to be indicted. They need to be prosecuted. And they need to be put in goddamn prison. And if we don't do it soon, then we might as well not. And again, if you look at history, if you say, and I see this 100 times a day, I've asked this question myself, how in the hell could these things have happened in the past? How could the Nazis have taken over a rational, civilized country like Germany, which was incredibly liberal in the 20s? And the answer is, it happens bit by bit, little by little, piece by piece, until all of a sudden it happens all at once. There are 1,000 points on that curve where you could have stopped it and did not. And we are far along the curve in the United States of America. And those that could stop this now have failed to do so repeatedly, over and over. And again, don't just refrain from sending me the goddamn messages. I got it. I understand that the lawyers and the attorney general have to do things in a calm, steady, rational fashion. Yeah, I got it. But you're talking like lawyers. And in reality, politics are about emotion. They're about violence. They are about perception. They are about what people are willing to do. And they don't give a goddamn about the law or about rationality or about what's right and what's wrong. And this is where we're at now, where action has got to be taken firm. And let me tell you something. I'm a long past now, but I'm a qualified ship driver. In other words, somebody that qualifies to the pilot house of a U.S. Navy warship and drive that vessel across the ocean. And the first thing that you learn about that job is that when you're facing another ship coming at you, a crisis situation, the first thing that you need to do is to take decisive and obvious action so that the other vessel knows what you're doing well in advance so that collision and crisis can be avoided. Well, this is absolutely true right now in the United States of America. We have to take decisive action now to prevent disaster in the future. And that's just not happening. It's not happening. Maybe Merrick Garland's not the man for the job, but somebody needs to be arrested.
Let me offer a counter. Merrick Garland is the guy who went after Timothy McVeigh and some of the other cases. And what he did, his pattern in those cases, was to bide his time, building up the evidence until he had an overwhelming. Sure. That essentially he played the long game. And it may be what he's doing here is building up a lot of evidence so that when he delivers the, what they say, if you're going to shoot at the king, you better kill him with the first shot. Well, maybe that's what is if you're going to go after Trump, you got to really make it such a crushing blow that there is no opportunity for him to survive. But the man survived 2 impeachments and has still survived a seditious attack on the Capitol. So whatever Merrick Garland is thinking, I agree with you. The time is now. He's got to do it before the midterms for 2 reasons. First of all, it will affect the midterm turnout. But also, if the Republicans take control of the House, that ends the January 6th committee hearings. And it makes it harder for Merrick Garland, the Department of Justice, to act when he doesn't have that other thing going on. So I assume that there are people in Washington, D.C. who are smart enough to understand the long game and what they're up to. The Democrats aren't stupid, but they play politics the old-fashioned way. They believe everybody's playing by the rules. And the Republican Party abandoned all pretense of playing by the rules a long time ago.
Right.
And
again,
it goes
this is what happened in Germany. The rational people expected rational people to act rationally, and the fascists did. Yeah. And we're exactly where you're saying right now. Yeah.
We have to recognize that the Republican Party, particularly Donald Trump, who controls the base right now, regards the rules, the laws, the agreements, ethical behavior as an obstacle to be ignored and to be just trampled on. It's like, we don't like the results of the election, we're going to call it stolen and storm the Capitol. That is not rational. Right. And, and Trump sent in those people who he didn't bother to pardon them. He had, 14 days. He could have pardoned the whole bunch. But, he's willing to he's going to sacrifice his own kids if he thinks it'll save him.
Sure.
because according to the New York Attorney General, they have an incredible case against the entire family. And if Trump has to throw his kids under the bus, he will. That man does not demonstrate loyalty in any way, shape, manner, or form. There is nobody. I mean, it's like you went to work for Trump in the White House. Sooner or later, you were the enemy, and Trump was going to say what a terrible person you were. So,
right.
Yeah. I see somebody posted this. The conservative old guard in Germany thought they could manage Hitler. Then the Reichstag fire happened. Yeah. You cannot manage a Hitler. And that's the same thing. They thought they were going to manage Trump. You can't manage you cannot manage you can't manage an insane person.
Right.
And I've had this on a small scale. There are people who you say, this is what we have to do. And they go crazy. They absolutely will not follow instructions, even when you pragmatically tell them, we do this, 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 and this, and we will get to there. And they go off. I don't know how their minds work, but as soon as I can identify somebody who is unable to follow process towards conclusion, they get kicked out of my life, because I cannot be a failure magnet for anybody. You know, I will not. And I will tell you something. And I love my son. My son was not the easiest kid he was a lot of fun. He turned into a teenager. He was not the easiest teenager to live with, but he had a big heart, and I never quit on him because I knew that he could be pragmatic enough to figure things out. And I was right. He has turned into an incredible man and a marvelous human being, and the greatest dad that any kid could ever have. So, you know, but they were warning me. They said, you know, you're going to have problems with this kid. And I said, and if I don't take him on, then what? You know,
right.
But I have to really believe in someone to make that kind of commitment. And I'll tell you, if somebody makes it all the way to adulthood and they have not demonstrated that they're dependable, that's what we have with Donald Trump. He cannot be depended on to do anything rationally. I mean, the man is insane, and yet he is functionally insane. He is not rational. And yet I cannot understand why those supposedly smart, red-hatted MAGA people cannot understand that they are following, you know, it's like Jonestown. You know, one day he's going to ask you all to drink Kool-Aid. Well, actually, it was Flavor Aid. Kool-Aid is
Flavor Aid. Yeah. They're not going to ask you to point a gun at you. Dudes are going to point a gun at you and make you drink it. Yesterday, we were at the seafood festival in Pensacola, and there was a guy standing in a corner down there. Even you talk about cult-like behavior, and every place you go in the South, there's always this guy, and he's outdated clothes, like from the disco era, and a scrawny tie, and he's all covered in sweat. And you know what sign he's holding, right? Oh God, we got to save the babies. I'm like, dude, where the hell have you been? You're standing down here in the middle of a seafood festival with Donald Trump hat, about abortion. Did you miss the whole Supreme Court decision? Because abortion's illegal now in the state of Florida. I don't know what the fuck you're protesting, but they're so ingrained, it's so imprinted on their brain that even when they got their way, they're still out on the street with a sign protesting shit that they've already gotten their way on. And it's the same thing with these MAGA types. Again, they're so angry, they're so mad, they're so programmed. But again, you know, looking at this yesterday, this is exactly what happened in Germany. You know, and I had somebody yell at me yesterday and say, well, the liberals are the real fascists. I'm like, what? Stop. Blood is coming out of my ears. You even understand that fascism was a direct response to liberalism, that you can't be a liberal fascist, that fascism itself, its fundamental underpinnings are absolute hatred and a desire to destroy liberalism. And that's exactly what's happening here in America. When
Tim, a lot of these people are just throwing words around without any understanding of what the words really mean. Is that, like, you know, they'll use words. It's a trick that goes all the way back to Newt Gingrich or before. Is take the words and redefine them so we can use them against the other guys. It's all projection. It's like, you call me a Nazi, you're the real Nazi. You call me a this, you're the real that. You know, Antifa is the enemy. You know what Antifa stands for? Anti-fascism.
Right. But again,
are you a fascist? No, I'm not a fascist. I'm against fascism. Then aren't you an Antifa? It's like I do not follow their logic because there's no logic to follow.
Right. Well, this is what problem. This is what I said to my wife yesterday. I stand in these large crowds of people here where I live. I look at the race, I look at the things that these people are saying, and they make no sense. You know, some of the stuff these people believe, but I look at Twitter, and if you've ever followed my Twitter timeline, those of you that are listening to this, you know what an absolute and utter shit show my Twitter feed is. The thing is that one of the reasons that I persist on Twitter is because it is increasingly a very valid mirror of what I see in the real world. This lack of sanity of people that believe in things that are provably insane, absolutely insane. Yesterday I mentioned that I got a COVID shot yesterday. I got my 5th COVID booster, or fifth shot, 3rd booster, whatever the hell it is, the covalent one now. And yesterday, and within 30 seconds, I had people screaming at me about 5G microwaves and genetic mutation, and and these are, some of these people are obviously trolls, and they are obviously foreign agents who have a vested interest in Americans not being vaccinated and Americans being vulnerable to a disease. There's no doubt about that. But those trolls wouldn't be effective if there weren't Americans who didn't actually believe that nonsense. How you can be in the second century, or the second decade of the 21st century, how you can be 50 years beyond the first human being setting foot on the moon and be an anti-vaxxer is beyond me, man.
They're living in an alternate reality which does not require facts or substance or logic. I discovered this a long time ago, is that they think disagreement is sufficient. We had somebody show up in the chat that's running down the side of the screen, who all he posted was impeach Biden. Okay, fine. On what grounds? What's your case? Make your case. I will read the facts and evidence and logic if you can make your. They don't make their case. They just post these slogans like bumper stickers mean something. Right. Bumper stickers are what you put on the back of your car and you think it makes a difference. It doesn't. All it does is put adhesive residual on your car. It makes your car uglier. But you see this,
man. That's magnetic ones.
Yeah. The thing is you have to ask. And I did this, 7 years ago with the Sad Puppies Attack the Hugo Awards. And I said, okay, tell me why you think the stories in your slate deserve a place on the Hugo ballot. Where's the quality in them? Argue for the quality, And what I got was the loudest crickets I have ever heard. And they wouldn't. And that was part of the evidence. The only evidence I needed from them is that they weren't about voting for quality. They were about disrupting the awards. You were there, Jim. You saw.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was with you, as a matter of fact.
And it is. I don't have a word for it, but it is a mentality of toddler level disruption because I'm not getting my cookie, right. And the people who we're talking about, the ones who are so enrolled in the cults, they want their cookie. And what is their cookie? They want to hurt other people. They want the black people held down. They want the gay people held down. They want the women held down. They want the moral superiority of being a straight white, male Christian. And of course, they have redefined straight white male Christian to mean something ugly. It's like, right. I grew up, being taught Jesus was the Prince of Peace. They're posting pictures with Jesus holding an AR-15. No.
Yeah, well, and you're absolutely correct. Again, and I've asked this question repeatedly. And again, in Twitter, as big a cesspool as it is it's a really good way to monitor the aggregate viewpoint, the current viewpoint of the instantaneous viewpoint of the world, of Americans in particular. And of course, you have to be careful because you're by definition seeing filtered content. So I filter specifically for the worst of the worst. But again, it's not scientific, but it does give someone like me who writes about politics all day a pretty real-time impression of what people are thinking. And what you said, David, is absolutely 100% true. I asked this question repeatedly. Here I live in, for those who don't know, I live in Florida Panhandle. I live in Florida District 1, Matt Gaetz District. So my representative is Matt Gaetz. My congressman or my senators are Marco Rubio and Scott, and my governor is Ron DeSantis, the guy that's flying migrants around the country like a human trafficker. Speaking of human traffickers, we're back to Matt Gaetz. And I ask people here in Florida District 1, listen, I'm not asking you people to vote for Hillary Clinton, okay? But I'm asking you, what has Matt Gaetz done for you? He has advanced no legislation of any constructive value. Most of his congressional record consists of resolutions for one insane, ridiculous, nonsensical thing or another. He spends about 95% of his time outside the district fundraising, making money with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and those people. He has done nothing for you. There's literally not a single piece of legislation that people in Florida District 1 could point to and say, well, at least he did that. There's nothing. He has done nothing for you. He's brought home no. In fact, the only dollars that are coming into this district are from the infrastructure bill, which he voted against. Okay? So what has Matt Gaetz done for you? And the answer universally is he makes you mad. We become a nation. I've said this before. People that follow me have heard me say this. We have become a nation of cutters. Hacking our own flesh to get even with people with fights that we have imagined in our head. We're not building things. We're not creating a future. We're just making sure that you can't do it either.
Let me say something here. The question is, what can we do in response? What can we do to delegitimize that position? Because what we have is somebody who's shouting fire in a crowded movie theater and essentially creating panic where all we wanted to do was enjoy the movie. I mean, all right, it's Star Wars number whatever, which is like, I'm not going, but okay.
Andor, man. Andor's pretty great. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, but now I used to think that a rational discussion of the issues would be an appropriate counter. What I discovered the hard way is it isn't. Somebody who has not reasoned themselves into their insanity is not going to be reasoned out of it. So one of the things that works is ridicule. Is when you ridicule someone, you take away their legitimacy, you take away their gravitas, you take away, you demonstrate that what they are is a laughing stock. And I'm going to go back in time. Back in CompuServe in the 90s, we had a very strong part of the issues forum that was dealing with LGBT issues. And mind you, AIDS was still a big thing. We were talking marriage equality, and we were being told, you guys are sinners. You don't deserve, blah, blah, blah. You can't be trusted around children. And they posted
I followed your CompuServe forum. I remember this.
Yeah. And so I got in the habit of, if you can't be trusted around, if you can't tell the difference between sex between consenting adults and the rape of an animal, please stay away from my dog. They compare homosexuality to bestiality, and I would respond to stuff like that. So, and I had a whole repertoire of responses, and I don't think it changed anyone's mind, but it shut them down. They didn't come back because they didn't want to be ridiculed. And if ridicule is what it takes to drive these people back into the woodwork, then I say make them the laughing stock of the country until they understand that the positions they're taking are ridiculous, not even worthy of being on the fringe. They are just people who are mouthing insanity and deserve to be, it's like, I was told, don't kick cripples and don't make fun of insane people. But right now, it's like, okay, I won't kick cripples, but I'm going to make fun. The crazier you are, the more I'm going to make fun of you.
Well, there's people that are crazy because it's a thing. And for whatever reason, but this is a problem I run to on my social media feeds. Is I'll say something along the lines of, this guy's nuts. I say, listen, you can't say that because you're making fun of people with mental illness. No. Hang on a minute. There's mental illness, and there's mental illness, and there is mental illness that is whatever, for whatever cause, whether it is triggered by physical structures in the brain or whether it's triggered by trauma, things like PTSD. I'm a veteran. I know a hell of a lot of people that suffer from mental illness that were caused by massive trauma. But there's also a kind of delusional worldview that you embrace deliberately. And that's a whole different kind. It's you can't look at people. Listen, if you honestly believe that COVID was created in a Chinese lab by Dr. Fauci so that the people who created 5G could manipulate your worldview and make you vote for socialism, you're fucking crazy, all right? And for and you have embraced that willingly. You have listened to, again, there are some really gray areas, and I am obviously not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, and so I'm talking out my ass here, but the bottom line is that if you embrace that fundamentally insane worldview, and that worldview is not sane, okay? I think we can all agree to that. If you embrace that willingly, then
one of the things I've discovered about fanatics is they don't have a sense of humor. You absolutely,
I have beagles
you
howling
tell a
out there.
joke and they freak out. It triggers them into a rant. It's like, yes, I get it. You're a fanatic on this subject. I was telling a joke. You remember it? I'm sorry, your sense of humor is in remission. But this is a great way to identify fanatics. They won't change their mind and they won't change the subject and they have no sense of humor.
Right. Well, as you said earlier, you can't reason people out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. And this is why Democrats fail in a lot of cases, because you look at stuff and you say, listen, the things that you believe in are patently insane. They're crazy. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of people on the left that believe goofy shit too. I'm sorry, I keep getting distracted because there's a window right here to one side of me, and outside of that window right now there is a small beagle who is talking very loudly about something, and I'm not sure what he's yelling at. Came across the street, birds in the tree. I don't know.
I have the same thing. I have the thunder goblin going up and down the hall behind me.
He'll lose interest here in a minute, but it's a little distracting. Anyway, but again, you can't reason. And again, what I guess my point is that again, I'm not a psychologist, so when I say you're nuts, I say that as a guy that writes about politics, about worldviews, not as a doctor making a diagnosis. I think that's an important distinction. The thing is, though, is that worldview, and there are a myriad examples all around us every day. I mean, yesterday, I'll watch any Trump speech, and you'll see hundreds of them. The thing is that those people may not have anything fundamentally wrong with their brains, and now it's good from the other side. With their brains, but their worldview is patently insane. It's not rational. It's not sane. It's provably incorrect. It's provably not reality. And so you're very much at the kind of behavior and worldviews that we see in cults, where people believe things that are fundamentally insane. And while there's nothing structurally wrong with them, they still have to go through a process when they leave that cult or when they remove that cult to be deprogrammed that worldview. And we I don't want to say half America, but a significant fraction of Americans literally embrace things that are provably insane, that are not reality. And I've had, I don't know, follow my social media feeds. I've had thousands of conversations with people just like this. And again, as David said, you can't reason. There's no way to reason these people out of that worldview. Just as you can't reason somebody out of a cult. It's a process. It has to be done by professionals. And there's a point where there aren't enough professionals and there aren't enough assets and resources to deprogram a population that has gone fundamentally insane. And the result of that is absolute and utter disaster. And history is rife with examples of that. The most obvious being Germany in the 1920s, 30s, and halfway through the 1940s. You know, hey, one thing I did want to mention, and I don't know if Jeff Sturgeon's watching, but in case you see the background here, that's the cover of Last Cities of Earth, the original painting. That was at David and Bob and I were all at the World Science Fiction Convention in Chicago about a month ago, and that painting was Jeff Sturgeon's offer at the art show, and I put on it. Never thought I'd win, and I was halfway home. I was halfway across Michigan when I got a phone call from the very nice people at the art show at Chicago Worldcon telling me that I had won the bid, and then I needed to pony up some money. I was in a car traveling down the highway, so we worked that out and we got it done. And when I got home, that piece of fantastic original cover art was waiting for me, and so now it's my background today. So I did want to mention that. Thank you. If you're watching, Jeff, I know you're having some family issues at the moment, but if you're watching, thanks a lot, man. It's even more fantastic in person than it was on the cover of the book. And for those of you who don't know, Last Cities of Earth is a great anthology, and both David and I are in it. So go buy a copy.
I had a fun time writing my story. Because I don't write very many stories about dystopic environments. I think I've done 3, maybe 4. But this was one, let's take a trip up the California coast that has been completely abandoned and overgrown. And it's called Jack and Jill Went Up the Hill.
Right. It's a great story.
It was a fun story to write because I got to destroy Santa Barbara and a few other places. Anyway, please, Jeff is considering a second book in that universe, and there's more there's a lot to explore. He invented a very interesting universe, and people came up with some great stories. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I got another one halfway done. Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, you and I have to get back to work on the book.
Our own. Like I said, I've been traveling for the last 3 weeks, and I've just
me
really
too, and I'm still playing catch up.
So for those of you though, as long as we're here, again, David, I, and Bob, wherever the hell Bob went, we were all at the World Science Fiction Convention in Chicago. There he is, in Chicago, just about a month ago. And well, not quite a month ago, but pretty close. And we all had a great time. It was awesome to be all in the same room together. And those of you that came to see us and stopped by the table and got an autograph and bought a book and did all those things, or bought a tribble from David, or it was awesome.
I have friends who were very disappointed that they couldn't track you down and meet you. And you went off on your boat trip the day that they were going to hunt you down, and they were very disappointed. So you're going to have to come to some future convention that they're at on the East Coast.
I will indeed.
Alicia Herman and Seth Brigart, really great people. Every time
the Chi-Town people were awesome. Yeah, the convention people were really great. It was a terrific convention, and the Hyatt, man, the Hyatt Convention Center was pretty great. I got a room looking right out of the fireworks right down Michigan Avenue there. So it was pretty great. A good time. It was good to see you guys in person, and a lot of fun. Like I said, I wound up with Jeff's cover here, so I'm still gloating a little bit about that I wound up with that. Nice thing is it matches the color. Look, it matches the color of that's my artwork on either side there, and it actually matches the color of my own artwork. So, fits right in.
It was a lot of fun being there with you guys too, because while Jim was sitting right next to me for a fair amount of time, everybody was always asking, "Where's David Gerrold?" And all I could tell them, 2 blocks up, take a right. And he's the second table on the right. It was a big dealer's room. But
yeah, it was pretty big. So.
David was always had people.
It was a good convention. One of the best reasons for having a dealer's table for me is I get to sit. I don't have to walk around, and everybody I want to meet shows up sooner or later, and I got to see, Sarah Pinsker and Ian Randall Strock and Joe and Gay Haldeman and everybody I was hoping to see stopped by sooner or later. And so I got to have a lot of great conversations with a lot of people. Wesley Chu showed up. And,
Wes, I ran into Wes in the Skywalk area.
Yeah.
We had a good time. I got to meet Brenda Cooper, who I've been trying to track down for years, and she and I always managed to miss each other by about 3 minutes. And so she showed up at the table, and we got to sit and chat for a bit. She's an amazing person, so I really enjoyed talking to her. And but there were a bunch of people. Hell, I ran into all kind of people. So a lot of fun, and it was great. All those of you that came and got a signature and shot the breeze and bought a book from Bob there. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming by. You guys are all terrific. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm jealous now, though. David, you said that the Haldemans came by.
Yeah, did Joe and Gay. I ran into them at breakfast.
We had dinner with them. I had dinner with them, and then we all went. Shahid, who does Galaxy's Edge magazine, hosts a dinner at big conventions and like Worldcon, and Joe and Gay were there, and in fact, Jim, I think you were invited, but you were off on your whatever.
We didn't get back in time. My wife and I were out exploring Chicago, which I didn't see a single murder, mugging, nothing. Not even a rude person. There wasn't a single rude person.
In the wrong part of Chicago. I don't know. Anyway, but after that dinner, there was a American Writers Museum a couple blocks away, and we went over there. They had a special Ray Bradbury exhibition. They had typewriters from a lot of famous writers. Joe and I collaborated on a 2-sentence short story. Mine is it was. Why do you want to marry a Martian was my sentence, and Joe added, because we want to have stranger kids. And but it's hard to work on a typewriter when you're used to working on a computer. And
right.
These were all manuals as well. I think it was Truman Capote's typewriter that we wrote that on. But we had a great time, and it's so good to see Joe and Gay again. So, yeah. I love them so much. They're just, it's like, they're the people who you want to be worthy of their friendship. They're in that class of people. It's like, oh my God, please don't let me fuck this up.
Right. Well, my best Joe Haldeman story, he came to Red, a small convention, and said, what do you want me to do? And I said, well, what do you want to do? So we had him up on opening ceremonies. He brought his guitar and sang to us.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
So you said we got to see Wesley Chu. I saw him. He and I had been trying to meet up for dinner or something, and never kind of worked out. But at least I ran into him in the Sky Bridge. Charlie Strauss was there, who's always a blast to talk to, and Carl Schrader, who I very much admire, who writes just brilliant stuff. And so it was a lot of fun. I ran into more people than I can name. Those that sought me out, again, I really appreciate that. I'm very much flattered to be part of that company. So it was a lot of fun. So, but no, it's fascinating to me to be in. As we'd said, and I think I mentioned online a couple of times while we were there, was that we're in Chicago, and I hear all these horrible stories about Chicago, but Chicago was freaking awesome, man. It was clean. There were 1 million people. I probably heard 20 different languages in the space of 200 yards walking down Michigan Avenue. And everybody was great, man. Everybody was great to each other. Everybody in the huge crowds out in the city, everybody was decent, and it was an amazing place. It's full of life. It's amazing architecture. My wife and I took one of the architects. David said we took a boat tour. That's what we did. We went off and took an architectural tour through the middle of the city. You don't think about floating down the Chicago River, but if you're ever in Chicago, I highly recommend it. I think I saw some pictures that I took from that, and it was great. We had a lot of fun, and you could. I'm a foodie, which is why I have to ride a bike 20 miles every morning. And in Chicago, man, you can eat your way through that city. Jesus, there's some good food in that city, and we had a lot of fun. In fact, Bob, I still thank Bob and his wife for taking us to dinner. My wife and I, they took us to dinner, and that was pretty damn good. So we had a lot of fun.
Oh, guys, hold on for just a second. I thank Jim for coming to dinner. You think he rants here? Oh my Lord, watching him at the dinner table where he's got a real captive audience and the ability of Karen to roll her eyes when she's hearing this story for the 37th time, but still sounds interested. Jim, you've got a good life.
She's a hell of a lot better than I deserve. That's a fact. We've been married 31 years this year, and so we're about to become grandparents for the first time. So we're about a month out from that, and so it'll be very interesting. But again, I appreciate you taking us out to dinner. We enjoyed that, and it's like I told you, I would never turn down a meal from a publisher ever, and so.
Well, all I know is on the grandparent thing, you can get some advice from David. I'm told there's rumors on the internet that he might have a grandchild.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah. In fact, he was on. We were live. That's like before we came on for the audience. Before we came on, we were talking for a couple of minutes, and I had to laugh because David's grandson Aiden was at that fence right behind him, making faces at the camera. So yeah, he's a pretty funny kid.
He's an incredible kid. I'm not an expert on kids. I'm not even an expert on this one, but I will tell you, he is so much fun. People say, "Have you watched this show? Have you watched that show?" No, in the evening I sit around watching Aiden. He's much more entertaining. And he's so well adjusted. I mean, it's like because he's got 3 very attentive adults watching out for him all the time. And last night we had spaghetti for dinner, and there was so much laughing going on. It's amazing that he ate so much. He ate a lot of spaghetti. It looked good on him. But there was and he loves laughing. So when you start laughing, he looks at you and he starts laughing. Then you start laughing, he's laughing. And dinner took longer than usual last night because it was spaghetti and we were having too much fun.
Right. So. But that's the thing, man. That's the thing right there. This is it. This is what we should be doing as Americans, building a world where kids can eat spaghetti and laugh, man. That's the future that we should all be able to agree on. And yet somehow we can't agree on that. And that's bizarre to me that we can't all say, hey, we're all getting on in life. We're not going to be here all that much longer. It's the world that we leave our kids and our grandchildren in the future that matters. And yeah, look, maybe it costs you a little bit more now to build that better future world. But if you're not building a better world for our kids, what the hell is the point, man? And I think that's where we've gone off the rails in the last couple of years in this country. Is that, and David had said this earlier. This is something that David had mentioned about Trump. And it's funny to me how these circles always seem to come back to this asshole. But Trump doesn't give a shit about his own kids. Doesn't care what. He'll throw his own children under the goddamn bus for his own instantaneous gratification. And that's not. Trump he's the canary in the coal mine. He's a symptom of a larger malaise in this country where we are willing to, but goddamn, screw the future as long as I can get $1.50 a gallon gas. And I don't know where the hell we have become that goddamn selfish. To me, if it costs a little bit more, if life's a little bit more difficult for me, but it makes the future better for our children, well, that doesn't seem like it's that big a damn sacrifice to me. But it is apparently to a hell of a lot of people that I look at every day. I look at these politicians that are on here screaming bloody murder and are actively trying to make things worse for everybody, and in particular the future. The answer seems to be, and I've heard this repeatedly, I've heard this from people that I care about who said to me, I don't care, I won't be here to have to deal with it anyway.
My grandmother taught me, and I must have been 6 or 7, and she was saying, your job is to leave the place, leave every place you go, you have to leave it in better shape than you found it. Right. Your job is to contribute to others. Basically, she said, your job is to take care of the kids. And at the time, when you're a kid yourself, you don't hear that the right way. But there's a turning point in life if you get there where somebody says, what are you up to in life? Where's your integrity? Are you going to be an arrogant asshole? Or are you going to contribute to yourself, to your family, to your community, to the world? What contribution are you going to make? And when you start looking at your life as a place of service and contribution, it changes who you are. It's transformative. And the problem with our culture today is we have become a nation of selfish people. It's like, what's in it for me? Where's mine? I didn't get this. They got something I didn't get. I want to hurt them. We have lost sight of, we put men on the moon. We ended polio and smallpox. We can do whatever we put our mind to. Why don't we put our mind to dealing with global climate disruption, ending poverty, ending hunger, making sure every child has a good education? What we can afford that. Build a couple less B-2 bombers, we can afford it. Those things cost $2 billion a pop, and you can't fly them in wet weather.
Right. But again, I see this here, and I've mentioned this, I know here on this podcast a couple of times. I'm surrounded by people who, and again, I don't write me about generalities, but again, I'm surrounded by people who, by and large, get mad if their children do better than they did, and their answer is don't get uppity, don't get above your station, and where do you get off thinking that you're better than your parents? Well, goddamn, man, isn't that what you want? I don't understand. And I've had people say to me, well, I was hungry as a kid. We were poor. We had war. We had this and that and the other. Our kids don't know what it was like. Well, goddamn, I don't want them to know what it was like. I don't want my kid to be hungry. I don't want my kid to have to join the fucking military like I did and go off and fight in some shit country for shit reasons because shit politicians sent us over there. All right. And ended up making the world a worse damn place and making those countries worse for their own people. I don't want my kid to have to do that. In fact, I've never been so happy in my life.
You're preaching to the choir, Reverend. It's like, my kid, spent 8 years in foster care. As my job is to make sure he learns how to be the best person he can be. It wasn't about, you suffered, therefore suffering is the way the world. No, it's like, how do we contribute? How do we make a difference, And like I have said more than once, I'm proud of the man he has become. He's a great dad. He's a remarkable man.
Well, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. And and having spoken to your son a number of times,
You met him, yeah.
Agree. And that's how my son is. My son turned out to be and I get told many times, you're spoiling your children. Your children need to have it tough. That's a load of crap. My wife and I, again, I always say that my life was miserable. It certainly wasn't. My parents did a great job with us, but we were on the bottom end of the economic ladder. That's just how it was. And so we worked our whole lives. We worked our way up, and our son had it better than we did, and we had it better than our parents did, and our parents had it better than their grandparents did, because that's what you do for your kids, man. And it turned out fantastic. I couldn't be more proud of who my son is and who my daughter-in-law is, and the future that they're carving out for themselves. And we wanted them to have a better start than we had. And I literally am surrounded by people to which that is an alien idea, that they're enraged by that idea. You're raising a generation of sissies and people that don't know what it's like. Well, why the hell should we be beyond those things now? There's more than enough assets in this world to feed everybody, to clothe everyone, to ensure that everyone has a decent place to live. And there seems to be this idea in America that poverty and suffering somehow builds character, and it may, but I don't know that is the panacea that these people seem to think it is. I would say to you that the children that are educated, that have enough to eat and have a decent place to live and have people that care about them and are raised in a world that is not on fire from one endless goddamn war after another, are probably better human beings than we were. And it seems like that should be the goal. I don't know. It seems like we should all be able to agree to that. But again, we can't even agree in America that slavery was a bad thing. So I guess I'm not surprised.
Well, as I have said online more than once, is this country has been targeted by a deliberate propaganda campaign to weaken us,
Right.
to divide us. Fox News is a large part of the problem, but even if it weren't Fox News, the radical right, the extreme fanatics on the right wing, they looked at what they did. They looked at how they succeeded in Germany, and where they failed, and they're determined to do it to the United States and not fail this time around. It's the same kind of people, just a different generation that does not believe in democracy. One of the most frightening things I've seen is there was a clip of Hitler, and there were subtitles where he's saying, democracy doesn't work, we need a strong man. The echo in that was that exact phrase is repeated in the John Birch Society Blue Book. Democracy doesn't work, we need a strong man in charge. And then Donald Trump had the chutzpah to say pretty much the same thing, although he coded it differently.
Right, but it's the same word.
And the Republican Party keeps saying government doesn't work when what they really mean is that government doesn't work for us. Government, and let me go on to this rant, is when I was in high school, the civics teacher said government means control. I disagree. Government means service. Government is supposed to provide services to the people it represents. And if it does, there's two views. Either it's control or it's service. And the Republicans are about control and the Democrats are about service. And where our government provides services like Social Security and road building and so on, it does a great job. Where our government is being used to control people, like the militarization of our police departments, this is not service. And we have to choose as a country, do we want control or do we want service?
Right. But again, we have, and you've heard me say this many times, if you elect people who hate and fear government to run government, you're going to get a government of hate and fear. And you're looking right at it. We keep electing people. I literally, again, live in Florida District 1. I'm surrounded by people who hate and fear government. And they elect people who hate and fear government. And as a result,
collecting their Social Security.
My representative spends all day, every day, trying to tear down government, but not replace it with anything. As if 300 million people could live together, armed to the goddamn teeth, without some kind of structure to keep them from killing everybody else. And most of what these people are mad about here is that they can't take their guns and use them against all the people that they hate. And again, I run into this all the time. I run into this all the time. We hate these people. We hate those people. We hate these people over here. And my question is, you don't even know those people. I think I mentioned it here. There's a guy downtown. If you ever drive through Milton, Florida, right downtown, there's a guy whose front of his house is decorated with these giant signs where he hates trans people. I live in this redneck dinky town in the South. How many fucking trans people do you know? I mean, that you know. I bet this guy, I've seen this guy, he's in his 80s. I'm like, in your life, how many trans people have you been? How many trans people have even been mean to you, have said a mean word to you in any fashion? You don't even know any trans people, and yet he's so enraged about it. His whole front yard is full of giant signs.
Hey, Jim.
Again, these people hate and fear people. They don't even know anybody. They don't even know these people. And again, we're busing migrants out of this state. I mean, my question is, how many migrants do you know? You don't even know these people.
So, Jim, do you think he'd notice if you went down and had a banner made that took maybe the words out of Matthew, where that Jesus said, where the greatest of these is love thy neighbor like thyself, and just those are not the kind of things that you find on church signs where I live, man. These people all claim to be Christians, but the signs in front of every church is fire and brimstone from the Old Testament. You never, ever see a sign in front of a church in the South that says, feed the hungry, clothe the poor, heal the sick. Easier for camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. You do unto your neighbors as you'd have them. You never see those words
on signs in front of churches around here. Around it's all fire and damnation, hell and hatred, and people that God don't like. You never see the words of the guy that they named their religion after, which I find damn peculiar. When I bring it up, I get told I'm going to hell. So, you know, at least people that I can relate to. So, you know, there you go.
I like people who know the red letter words and can use them.
I went to Sunday school, man. You know, I went to.
So did they.
Raised in the damn church. So the thing is that again, the guy that said those things, the guy they named their religion for, if you remember how that ended up, they nailed that son of a bitch to a cross. So maybe things haven't changed all that much. You know what I'm saying?
These are the people.
If you look at that guy's message, and again, I'm not a religious person, but if you look at the message of Jesus, it was be decent to each other, even when you don't want to. Feed the hungry, clothe the poor, heal the sick, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Be a decent human being, leave the world a better place than you found it. And they nailed his ass to a cross for saying shit like that. And again, these people seem to think that the message of their religion is just be the asshole that you want to be, and you don't have to change anything, and it's not any work, and as long as you hate all the right people, when you die, you get to go sit up in heaven and laugh at all the other people burning in hell down below, and that's the best part. You know, I don't know. Like I said, religion gives me a nosebleed, so here we are. It's about that time, fellas, and I drank a very large coffee, so I'm gonna have to sign up.
Yeah,
So I know
well, here's to you all. But hey,
David got that. David and I are using.
Let me get the David and I are
using. You notice that David and I are using the same coffee mug, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you are.
That's right, because he came and stayed at my house, and he liked the insulated glass coffee mugs I was using so much. He ordered his own. So that'll tell you, that'll tell you how compatible.
Well, you know, being as I talk to you enough, I hear about Bubba. I bought me a Bubba mug.
There you go, buddy.
Oh, it's okay. I even have the one that you can take on your when you're.
Oh, hey, that's the one you get filled up at the Piggly Wiggly or at the Circle K.
Oh, hell yeah!
Now, the whole coffee pot.
But before you guys escape, I just want to remind you guys, BQ Press is out there, and we are still keeping the word going. Very first thing we did 6 years ago had a fellow named Jim Wright in it, where he wrote Trump at Gettysburg, as if Donald J. Trump were to give the Gettysburg Address. And that was more alternative truths, and we'll put it out in 100 days. Well, after the Supreme Court did their bullshit, I'll be blunt, you know, we are putting out a book called Post-Roe Alternatives, Fighting Back. Now, I'd call it Fighting the Fuck Back if I thought I could get away with it, but I don't believe Amazon would do that. And in there, we have some great works coming out at you. There's going to be eye-rolling stories from Jim, I believe.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Possibly one of the finest stories I have ever read from Adam Troy Castro. Poems from Jane Yolen that if you can read them without letting a tear dribble down your cheek, you're not human. And dozens of other, hell, we have 45 different artists in this thing. So, and it'll be out in about a month. So I'm just saying, we're still out there. We're still fighting the good fight. And so is Jim, and so is David, and a lot of people. So don't ever feel like you're alone when you're pushing back against fascism. Anything to add, David and Jim, before we go?
I would say that when I wrote that Trump is Gettysburg thing for your first book, boy, boy, I really seemed like parody back then. And that was his first couple of months in office. And since then, I couldn't just take his latest speech, the one from 2 days ago, and just publish that verbatim, because that guy is a hell of a lot better at parody than I am of parodying himself. But this is the world that we live in. So again, as Bob said, get on board. Submit if you guys are writers. Submissions are for VQ Press. Bob treats us very well, and buy the damn books and keep people like David and I in cheese sandwiches, because we really appreciate that.
Well, I like living indoors. I hear you two do as well. And you got to feed that danged beagle of yours.
Yeah.
Clearly starving to death.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, after another day, I'll tell you what, at about the 4:30 visit the skunk to our cat dish, and the dog's all roaring out the front door to meet him or her.
Yeah, I don't need that. I got that. I got my own problems with that here.
So you guys take care, and love having you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you, David.
Bye-bye.
All right. Punch us out here, buddy.
I'm ending it. I just got to push